Hi friends, my name is Kalpesh and welcome to my YouTube channel Automotive Crux. In this video, I am going to tell you how fuel injector works. Fuel injectors, or sometimes they are known as fuel atomizers, are the end components by which we can supply the fuel to the combustion chambers as and when we require. I would like to emphasize the words as and when required. Here I am going to explain you the construction and the working of the fuel atomizer or the injectors. So let's get started. The figure shown on the right hand side, it indicates the construction of the conventional type fuel injectors. In construction, it comprises the nozzle. At bottom portion you can observe the nozzle. The different types of nozzle I have already discussed in my previous video. If you haven't visited yet, I would like to request, please do visit, and the link for the same has been provided in the description below. So click on it and enjoy it. Apart from the nozzle, it comprises the spindle, or sometimes some manufacturers call it the plunger. So here is the spindle, and sometimes, as I said, it is also known as a plunger. Then spring. In construction you can observe spring at this portion. This is the spring. Fuel inlet passages. This is the fuel inlet passage through which the fuel is getting in to the fuel injector. The fuel return line. When the excessive pressure built up inside the system, the fuel gets returned through the fuel return line. Adjusting screw. Here is the this adjusting screw. It adjusts the pressure on the spring, by which the spring exerts the pressure on the spindle. So let's try to understand the working principle of the fuel atomizer or the fuel injector. Ideally, we can say at the end of compression stroke, the normal CI engine, it requires the fuel to initiate the combustion process. So considering the ideal process, we can say that the pressurized fuel is passing through this passage and it goes down at the nearer to the nozzle. As I said, this fuel is pressurized with the help of the high pressure pump. I have already discussed the helix bypass fuel pump in my one of video. Link for the same has been provided in the description too. You can consider for the reference. So the pressurized fuel comes at the bottom portion of this atomizer, and due to that pressure, this nozzle valve, or you can say nozzle pin, it lifts against this spring force. As this nozzle pin lifts, it creates passage, and the fuel will be sprayed inside the combustion chamber in the small fuel particles. That is called the atomization. Now, the atomization process, it depends on the number of parameters. You can consider as the fuel pressure, which we are known as a fuel injection pressure. Okay, this is it will be the key parameter by which we can get the better fuel atomization, and it also depends on the types of nozzle that we have implemented in the atomizer. So it depends on the types of nozzle, and it depends on the injection pressure. At the bottom portion inside the combustion chamber, we are getting the fuel spray. Okay. Now, as the fuel spray starts, the pressure in this passage, it will get down, and due to that decrement in the pressure, this spring, it will force the nozzle pin with the help of the spindle to close this valve at the bottom. So with the help of the spring force, the spindle pushes the nozzle pin and it sits on its original position, and it closes the atomizer's valve. So it stops the fuel supply inside this cylinder. With the help of this adjusting screw, we can adjust the pressure, or we can say the tension in the spring. So ultimately we are trying to adjust the pressure which is exerting on the spindle or ultimately on the nozzle pin. So depends on the types of fuels we are utilizing, depends on the combustion chamber adapted by the manufacturer. So many parameters are there, and considering such parameters we need to adjust pressure on the nozzle pin. So with the help of adjusting screw we can adjust the pressure or tension on the spindle or ultimately the nozzle pin. During the closing of the atomizer valve, due to this pressure built up inside the passage, the fuel will pass through this passage, and this amount of fuel, it goes to the return line. With the help of this return valve or return line, this amount of fuel, it is supplied back to the storage tank. So this is the all fundamentals of the fuel atomizer. As I said, this is the construction of the conventional type fuel atomizer. It can be utilized in all types of CI engines, but nowadays this conventional design, it is slightly modified and it becomes electronic fuel injector, and these injectors nowadays are utilized in most of the vehicles, regardless whether it is the CI engine or the SI engine, no matters. Okay. If you are looking into the construction of the electronic fuel injector, then we can find the nozzle at the bottom portion. This is the types of nozzle design, we can say, and this you can consider the spindle or the nozzle pin, okay, which is ultimately supported with the spring force here, and this is the same design that we have seen in the conventional. Apart from this design, we can observe the solenoid windings here. Okay. This is the solenoid windings on both sides, and to energize the solenoid winding we have an electrical connection. Okay. And this is the fuel supply passage. So let's try to understand the working of the electronic fuel injector. The high pressurized fuel from the fuel pump, it is passing through this channel and it comes here. By considering the number of inputs, the ECU produces the output signal and it sends the output signal with the help of this electronic connectors. When this fuel injector system, it receives the output signal from the ECU, this solenoid winding energizes, and as this solenoid windings energizes, it produces the magnetic field, and due to that magnetic field, this pin, nozzle pin, it will be attracted and it will lift from its original position. When it lifts, it opens this passage and the fuel from top, it will pass through the nozzle valve, and ultimately we are getting the spray inside the combustion chamber. Again, I would like to emphasize on the spray characteristic. It depends on the fuel injection pressure, it depends on the types of nozzle and many more parameters, but we are not discussing here. You can refer the more videos that I have already uploaded, okay, for the same. And once the fuel is sprayed, the electrical supply will be cut by the ECU and this solenoid winding, it will be de-energized and the magnetic field, it collapses, and as the magnetic field collapses due to the spring force, okay, due to this spring force, this nozzle pin, it will be forced to go downside and it will sit on its original position and it closes the passage. So it ultimately cuts the fuel supply inside the combustion chamber. So this is what about the electronic type fuel injector. Okay. You can observe the working on this small motion picture at left hand side. Pressurized fuel, it enters through this channel. when ECU supplies the electric current with the help of this electrical connection, the solenoid is on. That means it energizes, and this nozzle pin, it will be attracted, so it will be lifted from its original position and fuel gets sprayed. When the electrical supply is cut down, this solenoid is off, and due to that spring force, this needle valve, it will be sit on its original position, okay, and it will close the passage, so ultimately cuts the fuel supply into the combustion chamber. So this is what about the electronic fuel injector, or you can consider the fuel atomizer. Thank you guys, thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe this channel and click on the bell button so you will not miss anything that I'm going to upload. Thank you so much.